I will not lie, these settings are incredible. And if you've seen any of my gameplay, you know I am hitting those shots. So much so that I'm getting accused of having a Cronus or something else to help me aim. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe, and let's get into it. All right, ladies and gents, I'll get in here and show you guys how to build out your controller settings properly. I'm gonna be using my mouse just to showcase, you know, some of the stuff. It's a little bit easier to go back and forth and kind of go over things, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna get right up in here to the very first tab, the controller settings. So first thing in here, you guys will notice these little boxes right there means that I've altered that setting. So that's just kind of something to take note of. Infantry aim sensitivity, I used to play at a 45. I moved it up to a 55 after I felt like it was a little bit too slow to look around. This feels like it is the absolute sweet spot for me to be able to look around and feel very, very accurate. When I do have to, you know, flick onto somebody, that is very, very nice to be able to have. Moving down a little bit, this is not necessarily something you absolutely have to do, but I recommend playing on 120 FOV for reasons being you get to see more of what's going on around you. And also when you are looking and aiming down sight on your gun and you're firing, your visual recoil looks less on your screen because you're not zoomed in as much. Obviously, if you, let's say, go from a red dot to a high zoom optic, the way you're seeing the general jiggle of your gun when you're firing gets increased when you're using the high zoom optic because you're more zoomed in. So the general field of view, I recommend playing at the max. I mean, if you play on like a TV way far away, maybe not the best idea. I'd say if you're playing on a monitor or anything relatively close to you, 120 FOV will be very, very nice. The vertical aim ratio is going to be left at a 56. Uniform infantry aiming is going to be left on. However, I will show you guys something here just in a little bit in which you guys have to turn off. And so we'll come back to this setting in just a second. My zoom sensitivity coefficient is at a 0. What it does is it enables and adjusts sensitivity of uniform infantry aiming zoom. The greater the value, the higher the sensitivity while you are zoomed. So I don't need to have like any extra crazy, you know, ramping up of my sensitivity. One thing you generally speaking want to do when you are playing the game is have it like slow you down a little bit when you're ADSing. You don't want your same exact sensitivity normally when you're ADS, but for this game for right now, it actually feels really, really good. So I recommend playing on a 0. If you increase that, basically you're just taking your infantry aim sensitivity and like increasing it when you're ADS, which doesn't really make sense. That means you're just going to be missing more shots ultimately. Next up here, we have your infantry aim assist and infantry aim assist slowdown. These are both going to be left at 100. I know some people in the comments are like, you know, turn off aim assist, play like a man. Like, listen, this game is like, it's hard enough to aim as is in the game. It's not like it's Call of Duty where the aim assist can almost do most of the work for you. You still have to actually try. So you don't want to like give yourself a disadvantage in the game being on controller. Like, there's a reason controller has aim assist. It's because we don't have our entire arm to move around with a mouse and fine-tune the game like that. Like, we have our thumbs on sticks, so you definitely need it. Down here though, infantry aim input curve, it's really nice. Ever since that season 1 update, they at least allow you to see what all these different input curves are. By the way, if you ever go over to this one, I think, what is it, dynamic or whatever it is, yeah, dynamic is an absolute joke. If you want to have like some fun by not being able to actually properly move in game, this will be actually hilarious to try. But if you guys are actually trying to be serious about it, I'd recommend playing on Battlefield 3, as this is like a really, really nice kind of gradual curve. I'm not a big fan of having this extra curve. I believe that's, what is it, Battlefield 1 and 4 versus any of these other ones. I think Battlefield 3 is very, very nice. It gives you a nice slow ramp, which makes it very controllable and easy to kind of lock onto targets. It doesn't go too high and too low. I like that quite a bit, so I'd recommend Battlefield 3 for you guys to be able to do that. Of course, moving on down here, obviously we don't have to mess with this at all. This is kind of grayed out right now, so I can't really do anything with it, but my stick input acceleration presets are on Battlefield 4, 3, and Battlefield Bad Company. I just chose this because I like the infantry aim input curve of Battlefield 3, so I want to go for that. And my aiming left and right acceleration is at a 30. I've messed with this a little bit, and it seems like generally speaking, being on a 30, like, you want it to start at like a 0. Try it out in the firing range and see what works best for you, and see it to the point, and see where like is the point where you stop overcorrecting, where you're able to snap onto somebody. Like, that is what I would suggest for you guys to go do. Of course, you still will overcompensate a little bit, but overall, I think that this really does legitimately help. So definitely go into the firing range after this, and, you know, and try and like snap onto a target, move left, move right, snap onto something, and kind of adjust this starting at 0, going up, and seeing at which point you feel good. And that is the point in which you should be leaving it out. I am at a 30, so you can definitely try that, but That is just the general setting right there. As far as my movement goes, my infantry sprint is just kind of on toggle, and my double tap forward to sprint is just kind of on sprint. I could have it on auto sprint. I think I was having some issues with my controller getting it to actually properly work, so I just left it on sprint. For everybody else, you should be on auto sprint. It just could be something with the way I have everything set up. But for right now, I've just been running sprint, and it has not had any issues for me. Sprint, of course, is the left stick, as I just, press in the left stick whenever I'm going to go do something right there. Crouch toggle sprint is going to be on stand. Vault over sprint is going to be on slide for me. This is going to be my right stick. And that also is like if I hold it down, I'm going to go prone just the way I have my controller set up. The custom bindings, that is a very, very nice to be able to have. Your crouch slide just should be on all. Double tap crouch for sprint slide should be on. Now we're going to get down here into the zoom tab. So this is another case of where I have some of these things custom mapped, which you can do in a different tab. But I have my zoom as LB. I play, of course, with the Scuff and Vision controller, which is an Xbox controller essentially. And I use the top bumpers instead of the bottom triggers. For me, that's comfortable. And you just basically got to use what's comfortable to use. So just obviously go into your custom map settings and reverse them if you want to do that. That's what I did. I don't necessarily say you have to do it, but for me, it's just what I enjoy doing. Now for my steady scope, I just have that as my right stick because obviously that just feels natural for me playing so many years of Battlefield, of Call of Duty. That's you always, for me, I've always used the right stick to kind of hold it in a little bit. For me, that feels natural, so I like that. My infantry zoom aim sensitivity is going to be on a 70, and right down here, you can see my zoom transition sensitivity smoothing is off. So this is what I said. We're going to go back to that setting. What you guys want to do is go right up in here to where you see uniform infantry aiming, turn that off. So now that you can go all the way down here and you can toggle this, it'll be on. You want to turn that off. So once you do that, you can go back up in here and turn your uniform infantry aiming on. And that zoom smoothing, basically what that is that kind of like ramps up your aim assist. Like to when you're like zooming in onto the target. That's not that good, right? We want it to be an instantaneous, like you hit the trigger, bumper, whatever it is to aim. You want it to be instantaneous. It switches over to your zoom settings, not like a slow ramp up. That's how you start missing targets and stuff like that. What if there's someone kind of slightly by you and maybe the aim assist slightly starts to pull you over, or doesn't slow you down enough for the target you're aiming at, so you overcorrect? Like, we don't want that. We just want it to be a snap from like one to the other. That is going to be infinitely better than doing any of this other crap. And of course, if you want to have an actual aim sensitivity where you turn off the uniform aim sensitivity, I recommend dialing it down maybe from that 1.0. You can see I've adjusted this just to show you guys that, when you have it set at 1.0, you can dial it back, and it of course slows you down from like your general base sensitivity, which is going to be for me my 55, the very top that I showed you guys. So you can kind of dial it back, and then obviously as you get down to some higher zoom optics, you can dial that down even more, so that way you're not overcorrecting when you're zooming in at like 6, 8, 10 times scope, right? Like that just doesn't make sense to have the same sensitivity when you're zooming in as a 1 times at a 10 times. You're not trying to make those like crazy corrections like you would, like you're not being aggressive, with the 10 times scope. You're just not. And just to show you guys the rest of the stuff right down here, you don't have to go ahead and mess with it. This is all just basic. Haven't done anything like that. I know people say there's the flick look, infantry flick look threshold. I haven't messed with any of this just because I personally don't really care to mess with it, and I think it feels fine. So you guys can just leave it right there and be totally okay. Also, to put it out there, I'm not really ever using the flick look. Like I don't have a custom button map. Like it says you still need to bind buttons on the stick or flick actions on the controller mapping screen. I don't ever use that. So that's just kind of up to you guys if you want to use it. I don't think it to be beneficial. So I just would regularly look around. I think that is a very unnecessary thing to do, especially if the rest of your settings are set up properly. I don't think you have to do that at all. All right, so before we get down to the other part of the settings here, I want to show you guys, before we get down to the other part of the settings, since we're right back here at this menu, your infantry, passenger, control mapping, all this stuff right here, since all that stuff says custom for me, I'll just kind of briefly go through it, and you guys can kind of pause the video if you really want to, but overall, this is not going to be something that I would say like you have to go mess with a whole lot. Like there's some settings in here, there's some buttons in here, like my fire, my zoom, of course I changed it, my melee takedown, I put it on like on B. I have a controller that's got paddles on it, so I just like to have everything set up the way I would if I was playing like Warzone, for instance. So for me, that feels natural, and that's what I like. And I've been playing, both Battlefield and Call of Duty for years, but just that general style feels good to me. So That's what I have it set on. Of course, my gadgets are all the same. And one thing I actually have changed, of course, is my rangefinder zeroing if zoomed. You can actually set this so that as soon as like you zoom in, it's automatically zeroing it in for you. So it's kind of a nice little 2-for-1 right there. So if you have that rangefinder, you just kind of zoom in, you can bind it so it automatically does that for you. Nice little hint, tip, and trick. Of course, my steady scope is just going to be on my general right analog stick. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go all the way down to the very, very bottom, and we're not going to go for joystick. Some people confuse this for like your actual controller. This is not your controller dead zones. This is literally for people that are using an actual joystick, like a physical joystick on their desk, and they're playing because they're wanting to actually fly, you know, a vehicle, you know, like they're trying to fly a helicopter, you know, a jet, like an actual jet with a legitimate joystick. So that is not for us. We're going all the way down here to the very bottom, which is going to be controller tuning, and that's where your dead zones are going to take place. So right here, you can see controller vibration. This is on. For me, it feels natural to have some type of haptic feedback in my controller. It just has always felt that way for me, so I like it. I sometimes don't even notice it if it's off. It could be off and I don't really care, but basically, this is what I have it set on. It's not going to mess with your aim. Don't let people tell you that. It really is not going to, unless you have like some super mega extra rumble packs in your controller, which I don't know why that would be a thing, but it should not mess with you. Now into your actual dead zones here. This is very, very important stuff. So my center dead zone and my axial is going to be at a 0. Basically, I plan a 0-0 dead zone. I've played that way for a while, and I want to basically get the quickest feedback possible on my left and right analog stick. This will not work if you guys have, let's say, a bunch of stick drift on your controller. And at that point, you probably should just get a new controller. So you can't have your center dead zone at a 0. And I wouldn't recommend just obviously dialing it way down to a 0. If you're playing on like a 10 or something, you try to do exactly what I'm doing, it's going to feel really weird. So you're going to have to go basically take this. Let's say, I don't know, let's say it's on a 20. Don't ever do that, by the way. Let's say it's on a 20, then dial it down to like, you know, let's say a 15. Then you dial it down to like maybe a 10. And obviously you start dialing it down incrementally, as like, you know, to the low as you can go, or to as low as what feels comfortable. That is the ideal situation you want to have. But now you're looking down here at my threshold. Basically, this is going to be at a 60 because with our left stick, we're just sprinting, moving, you know, we're doing that type of stuff. We're not aiming. So we just don't need to have the full circumference of the stick when we're aiming. So we just don't need to have that full circumference of the stick when we are moving around. So we just want to have that 60% of that stick being pushed as our maximum input threshold, so we can sprint and move forward the fastest. Like, it just helps you react faster in Battlefield. Is it going to get you out of some of those around the corner deaths? Not really, but it helps you react faster, which is good. So maybe it might be able to save you, but don't count on it. Now down here on your right stick, your center dead zone and axial dead zone, this can be at also a 0-0 if you want it to be like that and you want to play exactly like how I'm playing. But I will say that this will definitely take some getting used to. So overall, I'd say to do the exact same thing you did up here for your left stick. The left stick will be easier because you're not aiming with it. Just kind of gradually dial it back. Remember, this is an arcade FPS reactionary shooter. So if you're not reacting properly, you're going to be getting, you know, pretty SOL, you know, or shit out of luck, you know, when you're trying to actually aim on somebody and you're like, why am I dying? And they're getting the shots off before me. It's because they're able to react faster because they have basically probably less dead zones, or maybe the connection gives them the advantage, whatever it may be. You want to give yourself the most advantage possible, which I believe is having the lowest dead zone possible. So I play like this. Just remember to gradually dial it back. That'll be fine. Max input threshold, though, this should be at 100. We don't want to dial this back at all. That is our aiming stick. We want to have the full circumference of the stick to be able to aim properly. If you don't do that, you're putting yourself at a massive disadvantage. And that is going to lead to missed shots and having the aim assist not work correctly. The dead zones in this game are already a little bit wonky. I'm going to keep it a stack. They're kind of like almost like in a cross format, like basically like a square format. And in other games, like for instance Warzone, it's in a very circular format, so it works properly. If you've ever wondered why someone comes diagonally across your screen and you try to correct and it just feels weird, like you're like, where's my aim assist going, or where's anything going? That's because the dead zones are kind of in a square formation, not like a circle. So some of that just kind of doesn't work properly. So we don't want to give ourselves a bigger disadvantage by limiting how we can actually aim. So for any guys that are wondering down here, by the way, my left trigger dead zone, right dead zone. This is going to be on 10 just because my bumpers are basically mouse click triggers and they're very sensitive. So all that happens right there is it just keeps me from auto clicking them in. And that's really about it. So otherwise, yours should be at a 0 and a 0 and keep that threshold at like 100. Doesn't really matter. And of course, just to showcase this a little bit here, you guys can be able to see that, you know, moving around, obviously, I'm not moving around like wicked fast, but of course, we're able to control stuff very easily. So that is something that is absolutely huge, and I want you guys to be able to take note of that, like that having proper settings will greatly impact you. So try my settings out. Obviously, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing, but I mean, hey, I'm able to aim and hit a lot of shots, and my stats kind of reflect that. So, you know, do what you want. Hopefully these settings help. Y'all enjoyed the video. Be sure to do me a favor. Give it a like, subscribe, check out this other video on screen. I'll see y'all next time.